Welcome, everyone, to Double Take, an NFL podcast streaming everywhere you get podcasts and also on YouTube. I'm your host, David. I'm joined by my twin brother, Daniel, and our very good friend, Steven Savage. How are you, boys?
It's Brock Purdy time. That's all I can say. It's Brock Purdy time.
I'm sick. I haven't gotten over it.
Yeah.
I haven't slept more than 30 minutes each night. I'm just kidding. I'm not that bad, but I am mad.
Yeah. So this is something that is going to, it's going to live for infamy here on the podcast. Obviously, the three of us are Dallas Cowboy fans. We love our Cowboys, but right now we don't. And even when the Cowboys in the future, I've come to this decision. I'll probably be overwritten because Savage said it before we even hit record. Cowboys, they do us big ratings. And so we're going to have to talk about them. But at least for the foreseeable future, there's no more Cowboys talk. This is the last one that we'll do on the show because it's just gotten ridiculous to this point. Obviously, let's head straight into it. The Cowboys get embarrassed at home in the first round of the playoffs to the Green Bay Packers, 48-32. With at one point, the score was 27-0 after two first-half interceptions by Dak Prescott, one of them being a pick six to the house. Jordan Love finished the game with a perfect passer rating and 3 touchdowns. Aaron Jones with 15 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns on his own. Daniel, I'm going to start with you, and then I'm going to go to Savage. What happened to the Dallas Cowboys in this game?
I mean, Mike McCarthy told you himself. They weren't ready to play. They didn't come ready to play. And that's a Mike McCarthy issue. It got so bad that at halftime, the great Jimmy Johnson went on the podcast and went ballistic. He was disgusted in the Dallas Cowboys performance. Defensively, even the seemingly weird chemistry that was going on between Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb in the first half. What was that? What happened? I'm curious to find out what did happen because it looked like they were out of sync for the first half. And so you take those things, you're not ready to play. That is a recipe for blowout. And there was times in that game where I'm like, man, Dak's got to do something. And then he scores a touchdown to end the half. Then I'm like, okay, it's 27-7. We get the ball in the second half. We score again, 14-27. The defense, could they get a stop? Then we go back and score 21-27. We're back in this ball game. But I realize that's hard to ask from the 20th ranked defense to stop the Green. 15. Oh, wait. No, the 10th. Oh, no, a top 5 defense? I know that's a lot to ask for you to get a couple stops. But there's no way you could have won that game with the defense playing the way that they did. Steven, one of our friends from the show, he said it looked like Dan Quinn was phoning it in. It looked like it was sabotage. You play zone coverage throughout the majority of the game when you're not a zone coverage team? I don't know what he thought he was doing. Did he think that this was going to help his chances of landing a head coaching job? Unless the team already guaranteed him, hey, we're going to hire you no matter what happens in this game. We just want you to make the Cowboys lose. Is that what happened here? I'm not sure that it is because I doubt that that's that's what it looked like. It looked like Dan Quinn had just completely given up. It looked like he just wanted to throw the game because he wanted to spend more time preparing for his interviews. And then offensively, Greg Olsen said it so many times. These routes look predictable. The play calling looked predictable. Receivers not doing what that, like they just couldn't get separation all day. And it looked like they gave up too. They weren't even trying to get open. The only guy that showed up on offense was your two guy, Jake Ferguson. And you can tell the demeanor that was different. You can tell who's the leader on this team and who's not. You look at CeeDee Lamb when he got a first down when they're down by 21 and then you look at Jake Ferguson, a guy who caught 3 touchdown passes, and just as soon as he caught a touchdown pass, he just went right back to the huddle because he was mad. That's what we need on this team. It seemed like there was a bunch of me's out there. I look up the next day, figuring out that Sam Williams and Kevontae Turpin planned a victory party before the game even happened. That is the epitome of what's going on in this team. And I told you guys before, this team is mentally weak, led by a defensive player who is mentally weak himself in Micah Parsons. I saw this thing on Twitter. It was crazy. In 2022, he was going to be a regular guest on the Undisputed show with Skip Bayless. And then they got romped week 1. And then he canceled it. But he was still going to do it. This year, decides to do a podcast from week 1 to tell you about his thoughts about the NFL. That's a guy who's more interested on building his brand than being the best defensive player in the league. So you're asking me what happened? The Cowboys would do cowboyish things. I would say that today. But after hearing many reactions for former Dallas Cowboys, that's not even what the Cowboys do. These guys are not built to play for the Dallas Cowboys. That's what happened on Sunday.
I mean, I don't even. You said it so well, so I'm not going to add too much. At the end of the day, and y'all can poo-poo this take all you want, when your leaders don't lead, and when they don't figure things out, this is what happens. What you said, Daniel, like you felt a little bit better because Dak scored a touchdown at the half, and it was 27-7. The game was already out of hand. You cannot climb out of a 27-point hole unless if you are the all-time greats. The time you should have scored the touchdown was whenever it was 20-0. You score a touchdown. You get the ball out of half. You score a different touchdown. And before the Packers have a chance to touch the ball, it's 20-14. That's when you're in the driver's seat. You have a chance to come back. Maybe the young quarterback gets rattled, and who knows? It could have been anything at that point. And on that drive, the quarterback that I've been hesitant to put my arms around his whole career, the quarterback that I've always been nervous about, but I felt like I saw enough this year to where I'm like, okay, let me rewrite the history I've seen of this guy for the last 5 or so years. Shouldn't have done that. In that moment, he throws what might be the worst ball of his whole career. I mean, it looked like he was throwing a quick slant to the Packers. That thing got picked off, took to the house, and at that point, the game was dead. The game was over. I was the only one in my group chats saying, if we score 7 here, we're not really out of this game because we can score after half, and then we're right back into it. And right as I'm typing that text, he throws that pick 6. That is not figuring it out. Mike McCarthy, your job is to call the offense and get the team ready. I don't care what the final score was. That might as well have been 50-0.
Yep.
All those points were empty calories because none of them came at a point when it actually mattered.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't call offense, and you didn't get the team ready. Simply put, you didn't figure it out. Dan Quinn, what was that? Just like you said, Daniel. You didn't figure it out. Nobody showed up to work. Ferguson showed up to work.
That's about it.
But even those touchdowns, like, it's hard for me to celebrate that. Like, that's going to look like Ferguson's best game of his career. But the only thing that I really see that was like, wow, that was good. That was awesome. Was that big catch he had in the first.
Yeah.
Or it might have been in the second. The 20 yards over the middle, somewhere kind of in that range.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. But
Right.
outside of that, they scored touchdowns. I'm at a watch party. They're all like, yeah. I sit there. Like, what's the point? Why even show up for the second half? That game was done. It was dead. It was over. Jimmy Johnson, sure, give a nice little speech. What? It doesn't matter. It's over.
They weren't going to show it.
There's no way you win that game. So, I don't know. I just feel and I want to kind of piggyback off of what you said, Daniel. Our team is full of talented players. There is so much talent on our team, but there are no leaders. Not a single leader on this team. And I don't care how nice of a Boy Scout Dak is off the field. He doesn't know how to lead a football team when things – yeah, you could see it. You could see it. That's the thing. As soon as Green Bay scored their first touchdown, Dak looked scared. So, David, I'm sorry. You got to get off of Dak. And I need to hear – I mean, it's just – this was terrible. It was pathetic. Dak should have had 4 interceptions. 2 of them were dropped. I'm sick.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add to that. I'm not getting off of Dak. I'm not, and I'll explain why here when we talk specifically about those 3 individuals: McCarthy, Quinn, and Prescott. But I'm not getting off of Dak. I think it's foolish, and I think it's emotional. It's an emotional decision to do that. But I will say that Dak did not play well at all in the first half. I can't say it better than how Daniel said it about McCarthy, about Dan Quinn. It's just all time bad. I think this is probably the worst Cowboys loss in the franchise's history.
It is, no doubt.
But don't blame the quarterback.
So, no, the quarterback gets blame, but I'm not gonna overreact and say we need to get rid of the quarterback. But let's get into what the Cowboys should do in the offseason. First, let's start with the head coach. Let's start with McCarthy. Savage, you said it already, but should the Cowboys fire Mike McCarthy? Why? And who are your potential candidates to take the job?
So I want to answer this first like a fan, and secondly like someone who knows how the Cowboys operate. So as a fan, absolutely you need to fire McCarthy. He can't stay around. He's got to go somewhere. That dude, it feels like a better version of Jason Garrett. Like Jason Garrett would get you 8-8 and lose in the playoffs. Michael at least get you 12 regular season wins, but it's the exact same playoff performance. And I could really argue Mike has a way better team than Jason Garrett ever had.
That's right.
Way more talent on this team
than
Garrett had with the defense side of things. And so, so really, I kind of view those as the same guy. And I was ready to get rid of Jason Garrett 3 years into his tenure. So, yeah, Mike needs to go. If you're going to ask me who my top candidates are, who I would like to get, first, I'll go from 3 to 1. Number 3 is Jim Harbaugh. I think he could be great for the Cowboys. The only reason I have him so low is because he hasn't been in the NFL in a while, and the league has changed so much from whenever he was last in the league.
And I think the Chargers are going to announce him today as their head coach today.
Right. Secondly, I would say Bill Belichick. Not because I trust what he can do with an offense, but because I'm tired of seeing my team in big games be undisciplined, unready, and unable to stop the run. All of those 3 things get fixed with Bill Belichick, and I'm not sure if there's a better coach on Sunday mornings available in the NFL. So that's why he's number 2. My number 1 candidate who I would like to see is Ben Johnson. That dude is a play-calling wizard. He has Jared Goff looking fantastic. And the last person that made Jared Goff look great was Sean McVay. we all like Sean McVay on this show, I'm sure. And so I think Ben Johnson's going to be that next young coach with an offensive mindset. Young offensive-minded coaches tend to win a lot of big games. That's who I want. It seems like towards the end of the year, even whenever we were winning games, it felt like defenses knew what we were going to call because Mike doesn't have enough variety in his play calling. So that's my answer as a fan. As a realistic Cowboys fan that understands how this team runs, we'll probably have Mike for another 3 to 4 years. And then whenever we finally do get rid of Mike, the coaching hire that we'll make is probably like a Ron Rivera type of move, or, an Arthur Smith kind of move, or like something like that, to where it's like, who's this guy? We just got Nat Hackett to be our head coach. What? Wasn't he terrible? And then Josh McDaniels is the new coach of the Dallas Cowboys. And that's simply because Jerry refuses to allow competency in the room. He does not want a competent coach that can get credit. He wants the credit for himself. So really, I think I'll be nihilistic until Jerry either hires a great coach or Jerry's not the one making decisions anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with anything that you just said. I do think that he needs to be fired. That much is clear. I think what would have helped his case if the offense played great throughout the game, the defense let you down. That's the only way that I could potentially see, for me, a reason to keep him. But the reason why it's so outrageous that he needs to be fired, like outrageously right, is because of the way you lost. It was over by halftime. And you even came out and you said yourself that you did not have your team ready to play. That in and of itself is grounds for fired. Now, for me, I don't have a ranking on who needs to be the head coach, just because I think I'm with Savage. I think Mike McCarthy, at least for another year, is going to be our head coach. I think that's what's going to happen. I think Jerry's going to look at the past 3 years, 12-5 records, a playoff win, and he's going to the number one offense, a top 5 defense, and be like, if we can just put it together again, if we can figure it out, I think that's enough for Jerry to be like, we're fine, we're okay. I don't think that needs to be the case. I think more than anything, we have a coaching problem. We have a discipline issue. For me, I'm not a big Bill Belichick fan. I think he's a product of Tom Brady. Defensively, I think he's a great mind, and I agree with you. He would fix that defense in a heartbeat. I do, and the discipline all around the football team. For me, the only thing that hesitates me is how he runs an offense. I mean, he had Matt Patricia as an offensive coordinator. That's on his resume. And so for me, if I were, and this guy's not available, at least I don't know yet, but the coach I would get for this team, if we're just dreaming here, because obviously I think they're going to keep Mike, my dream coach for this football team would be Mike Tomlin. A guy who, with one of the worst talent pools in the NFL, does not have a losing season. Can you imagine if he had talent on the defensive end, or at least as talented as the Dallas Cowboys were, and then talent on the offense, what Mike Tomlin can do? I think he's definitely an upgrade, and his players he'll have his team ready to play. That much is sure. So I'm with you, Savage. I don't think they make a move. I think we're in agreement. They should fire him, but they won't.
Yeah. My only hesitation with Mike Tomlin is the same reason why you have hesitation with Bill Belichick. We talk about Bill Belichick having Matt Patricia and Joe Judge as the offense coordinators on his resume. Mike Tomlin has Matt Canada on his resume. And so that's also my hesitation. I'm with Savage. I think Ben Johnson is probably the guy that we should go and get, but I think
Seattle's going to get him.
Yeah. But yeah, Mike McCarthy has to go. You can't lose a game this badly and expect to and expect things to be different. Because in one shape or form, throughout this season, last season, and the year before that, we've had games like this to where we just didn't have this team ready to play.
Every big game.
Yes, every big game. Because even if we want to look at, because I people bring up his time in Green Bay, that he won a Super Bowl, he went 15-1. Aaron Rodgers won 2 league MVPs with him. That seems to be more Aaron Rodgers than it is Mike McCarthy. It doesn't seem to be Mike McCarthy was doing all that work to make that happen. You had one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. But every time a big game came, your defense was giving up over 40 points, and Aaron Rodgers was trying to have to overcome that. And you got fired mid-season because they were just done with it. And like I said on the live stream that we did on Sunday night, I asked my friend Mark Jones, I said, is this the reason why you guys fired Mike McCarthy? And he said, yes, because we knew that he can't win the big game. They knew it. And so why would Dallas keep that? I think Savage is right. It's Jerry, I don't think cares enough. He says he cares enough. But as long as money is pouring into AT&T Stadium, he does not care what happens to this team. Very quickly, Dan Quinn. I mean, we all said it as well. Should he go? Daniel, we'll start with you.
I think so. I think you look at his top 5 or top 7 or 8 worst games defensively. 6 of them came this year. If that's not telling of anything at all, I don't know what is. And obviously, like, there at no point in that game did I believe. I mean, like I said in the earlier block, had they made a couple stops, maybe I have some hope that they win that game. But there was nothing really inside of me that said that they were going to stop a nosebleed that game. Dude, that's on you. That is on you. And so for me, I think his defense regressed at the end of the year. I think there was times where they looked like the worst defense in the NFL. Like, I look at the Eagles game. At least the Eagles made a couple stops against the Buccaneers, even though the Buccaneers could do whatever they wanted with them. But at least they got a couple of stops. Dallas couldn't even get a stop. They only punted 1 time in the entire game. And this was a team that didn't have a superstar wide receiver. They didn't have – Aaron Jones was hurt most of the season. And they didn't have Dillon either. Your defense was top 5 in the league, and you couldn't stop a nosebleed. You should be fired for that. So, no, I don't think he deserves a head coaching job. I don't think he deserves a defensive coordinator. He needs to go back to being a position coach. Honestly. That's what I think. So, no, he deserves to get fired.
Yeah, I feel like position coach might be a little strong, but I don't know if I want him to be. I don't know if I want him to be my defensive coordinator anymore.
Yeah, let him go be somewhere else.
It's basically the same take I have with Mike of I just don't want, and this. Okay, so I'm going to say something that's going to sound laughably stupid, but I need you to roll with me here. My take last week about the Packers and why we would beat the Packers. Here's the deal. Was that take wrong? Yes, the take was wrong. But I was right. I don't care. I was still right. We should have beat the Packers. We should have blown them out. Dak should have thrown a party on them. Our defense should have been able to stop them. It should not have been a 16-point loss. And the reason that we're all here on this podcast talking about, Mike needs to go and Dan Quinn needs to go and does Dak need to go is because we all know that the reason that we lost isn't because the Packers are better than us. It's because we choked like we always choke in big games. I was factually wrong, but actually I was right. And that take should have held true. And I came on here, I did the I was wrong, I was wrong, I was wrong, I was wrong. But at the end of the day, I thought about it. No, I wasn't. No, I shouldn't have been wrong at least. We should have won that game. It's like, should Dan Quinn go? Absolutely he should go. He needs to go find work somewhere else. Who becomes our defensive coordinator? Doesn't matter.
Al Harris.
I really don't
Al
care.
Harris, yeah.
It can be anyone. The only person who we need to retain this offseason is Will McClay. If everyone else goes, that's fine.
And he's already staying. He's already staying.
He's being paid GM money right now.
Good.
That's what they paid to get him to stay.
Last I've heard was a lot of teams were trying to take him away. But
they were.
They were, but he said that he had promised his son that he wasn't going to move again until he finished high school.
What grade is he in? 4th?
Hopefully. But
at this point, I hope that baby ain't started elementary yet.
Yeah, at this point in time, Will McClay is staying with the Cowboys.
Well, then that's literally that's the only bright spot of the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
Inferred.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
half of our team are free agents, guys.
Mm-hmm. Got to make some hard decisions.
Yeah. Well, and one of the hard decisions that Cowboys have to make is, do you re-sign Dak Prescott? Savage, we've already heard your take. We already know how you feel about it. Daniel, do you agree? Should the Cowboys finally move off of Dak Prescott?
I think if you're going to do it at any time to get up off him, now is the time. I think this is the time where you get up off him. Now, do I think they should? I'm kind of torn. For me, I'm all about, even if we're not winning Super Bowls or playoff games, I still want to be competitive. The minute that you get rid of Dak Prescott, you automatically go to a first overall pick type of team. We haven't seen Trey Lance, so I have no idea if he's even ready to take the helm. I mean, you're talking about a guy who couldn't even beat out Sam Darnold for a job. And again, there's probably some more things that we don't know about what happened in a situation with San Francisco, so I don't know. But I do know that it's hard to find a guy to give you the kind of production that Dak gave you in terms of like winning 12 games, leading the league in touchdown passes, being second in the league in QBR. It's hard to replace that. Now, if people want to get rid of Dak and want to go back and want to go even further back to winning only 6 games, 5 games a year, fine. If that's what you guys want, let's do that. But I don't think you get better unless Will McClay knows that there's a generational quarterback at the end of the first round. That's the only way that I can see us potentially being the same or getting better. But I think getting rid of Dak, you get a whole lot worse, and it's back to the early 2000s where you had Dave Campo as your head coach. That's how I see it. So if people want to get rid of Dak, I'm fine with that. But you got to live with the consequences that are going to come with that. So for me, I say personally, you keep him. When you get to contract negotiations, you say, hey, look, man, you take the deal that we're giving you, or you go play somewhere else. That's what I would do, because he is not worth 55 to 60 million. Definitely not. A guy who's worth 55, 60 million dollars at least keeps it close while your defense is falling apart. We talk about Aaron Rodgers, and you talk about Mike McCarthy, what they did in those early days. Aaron Rodgers, I have to go look at it, but the time that they lost to Arizona in the divisional round, Aaron Rodgers scored like 35, almost 40 points to keep him in the game. And then his defense failed him. I think had Dak started out hot like he had been the rest of the year, I don't think this is a conversation. I think everyone would have clearly seen, man, this defense is not going to stop a nosebleed. It's going to be hard for Dak to overcome this. But he would have still been scoring points. So for me, I'd keep him, offer him a $35, $40 million deal and say, take it or leave it, and then live with the consequences with that. But if people want to move off of him, I'm fine with that. But we're not going to be competitive for like 2 or 3 years if we do.
Yeah, I think I'm with Daniel. It depends on what we want to do. If we think that it's time to move off of Dak Prescott, then I say take the cap hit, put in Trey Lance, get the number 1 overall pick this season, and rebuild. I think that's what a lot of people want to do. And if you want to do that, fine. I'm okay with that. I'm really glad, Daniel, that you brought up Aaron Rodgers because it gets me to my take of the show. When you think about the great quarterbacks who've won Super Bowls, who have led teams to championships, what do they all have in common?
Great head coaches.
What do they all have in great head coaches? Montana had Bill Walsh. Brady had Belichick. Aikman had Johnson. Flacco had Harbaugh. Roethlisberger had Cowher and Tomlin. Like, you can't find a Super Bowl winning quarterback who hasn't had a great head coach. Dak Prescott, in his entire career, has had Jason Garrett and Mike McCarthy. And we're asking for someone who's not even at I don't think at the talent level of
any of those
Aaron Rodgers, of any of those quarterbacks. And we said, hey, go win us the Super Bowl. When you have a head coach who's 8-8 consistently in his career, and then a head coach who over the last 3 years has one of the most undisciplined, unprepared football teams to go out and to play in a game. And so you're asking a lot of Dak Prescott to overcome some things, but also to not get the same development that these other quarterbacks are getting. And so if you want to move off of Dak Prescott, fine. But my take here is that I don't care who you bring in as the quarterback of this football team, as long as Jerry Jones is the owner, they're not seeing an NFC championship game. You're not seeing a Super Bowl because you're not getting a quality head coach. We all just said it now. The only coach that we could get other than Mike McCarthy from Jerry Jones is a Ron Rivera, a Josh McDaniels, or a Nathaniel Hackett. And you're expecting Dak Prescott to win you a Super Bowl with
or
that?
Anyone, or any quarterback.
Or anyone to win with that? So yeah, move off of Dak Prescott. Because here's what's going to happen. Bill Belichick's going to go to Atlanta, who's going to build up that defense. Dak Prescott would go to Atlanta with Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts, and he's going to get the Falcons to an NFC championship before anyone here in Dallas does. But go ahead and do it because you're feeling emotional about how he played in the first half. But you're not going to win with anybody here. Not in Dallas. Not with any average head coach. You're just not going to do it. So you're asking me, like, can Dak Prescott figure it out? No one in the history of the NFL has ever figured it out with an average head coach. That's facts. It's just what it is.
If I can respond to that. My take is not exactly that Dak Prescott is the sole person at fault. You know that. You know that I'm upset at all of our coaches.
Right.
But to act like, and your take feels like, well, what is Dak supposed to do? I mean, what? It's not really Dak's fault. I mean, he has Mike. He doesn't have a great coach. So what do you expect out of him? Okay. I'm going to stay composed. David, did Dak Prescott play good on Sunday?
Yes. He did.
All right, that's the take. We're good.
He played bad in the first half.
Next segment.
And he played great in the second half.
No.
Turns out to be a good game.
Daniel.
He scored 32 points.
Daniel. Daniel, did Dak have a good game on Sunday?
He did not. He did
And
not.
how do you know that he didn't have a good game? Because you have eyeballs and a rational brain, right? That's why
but here's the thing. In that first drive, CeeDee Lamb did drop a pass that was going to go 20 yards. Also, later on in the first half, he threw a dot to Brandon Cooks that landed right in front of his face, and he just stared at it coming down. That's 7 right there. So obviously there were some mistakes. Obviously the interceptions that just can't happen in this type of game.
I'm going somewhere with this. Okay, did other people drop passes? Sure. Could Brandon Cooks have jumped 40 feet in the air and caught that ball? Sure.
I mean, it wasn't 40. All he had to do was do this and just not jog.
Dak did not have a good game. Dak did not have a good game. I don't care what the box score says, David, or I don't care that it shows he had 3 touchdowns. None of that mattered. None of that mattered. All of that offense in the second half, none of it matters. It doesn't count because anybody can score when you're playing prevent offense and just get everything underneath that you want. That is the story of Dak, is that in big games, he starts out slow. The defense tries to chew off the clock. Dak gets all these empty calorie stats in the second half. As Shannon Sharp always liked to say on Undisputed, it's all empty calories. It's all empty calories. He has a nice box score by the end of the game, but no one ever thought we were winning that game on Sunday. So no, your quarterback did not play good. And at the beginning of this season, you said if Dak's play is why we lost, that you were going to get off of him. Now, I'm not saying it's the only reason that we lost, but man, it is the majority of the reason because you threw 2 first-half picks. First-half picks. You should have thrown
48 points on defense, and that's on Dak.
No, what I'm saying.
That's the majority why we lost the game.
What I'm saying is that if you scored the football in the first half, the defense wouldn't have been out there the whole game. By the end of the game, the defense was gashed. They were tired. Did they let up scores at the beginning of the game? Sure, they did. But you have to match that team, especially when you look across the field and you're getting cooked by Jordan Love. And this guy's second-team All-Pro? No, he's not. No, he's not. I don't want a quarterback that can only thrive against terrible defenses. I want a quarterback that can cook regardless of the pressure. So if we get rid of Dak Prescott, does that mean that we might have to take a step back? Yes, but I would rather have hard seasons where we have a chance to get a young quarterback that can lead us somewhere instead of what we've had the last 3 years on this Cowboys fandom, this year on this show, the last 2 years with y'all on this show, of being sick at the end of the season because you have all these expectations and the floor drops underneath you because your quarterback decides to take the first half off the game. 0 passing yards in the first quarter. 0. So is it time to move on from Dak? Yes. Now, if he's willing to sign for $25 million a year, sure, we can keep him. But let me ask you, did he earn this paycheck that he's got? This contract, has he earned it? No. Absolutely he hasn't earned it. How do the Packers have the same amount of playoff wins in AT&T Stadium as the Cowboys do?
Well, they have more, but yeah.
How did that happen? Under Dak's watch.
I mean, you talk about the last 2 times they played in the playoffs, 34 points given by the defense, 48 points given by the defense. That's how. You got it, but I'm saying you keep saying that the defense was gassed. They're gassed in the first quarter. Are you kidding me?
Let's put the defense to the side.
Is garbage. The defense is exactly who I said they were. They never show up when they need to. They always pick off bad offenses. You're talking about a quarterback that takes apart bad defense. You talk about a bad defense playing terrible offenses, getting scoop and scores, racking up the stats, but then they play a quality offense and they let up 40 points and 200 yards rushing.
Yeah, and I bashed our defense too.
I know, but this is what you said. You said this word for word. The majority of the blame goes on Dak Prescott. That's where I think you're being a little bit emotional. The defense was the majority of the blame. I give Dak 25 to 33% of the blame because in that first half, hey, you got to if he doesn't throw those interceptions, then we can come out here and be like, man, now we got to look deeper into the offense. What was called there? But that's why I give him 25 to 33%. But 70% of this game needs to go to that.
I'm not saying 70. I'm not saying 70.
They couldn't stop a nosebleed.
I'm not saying 70% of this game is on Dak. That's not what I'm saying.
You said the majority.
Okay, 70 is not majority. I'm saying I'm probably giving Dak about 30 to 35% of this blame. I'm giving McCarthy about 20% of this blame. I'm giving Dan Quinn about 20% of this blame. I'm giving Micah about 20 to 25% of this blame. Right? But I'm saying
still way too high.
Majority.
That's still way too high.
The majority of this blame
has to go on
Dak because he didn't show up. But you know what? Fine. Let's keep Dak and let's never have a dream of winning a Super Bowl. Let's enjoy first round and now. And we can blame the coach. We can blame Kellen Moore. We can blame Mike McCarthy. We can blame Jerry Jones. And never once look at our quarterback as the fault. And meanwhile, we can see quarterbacks like Baker Mayfield and, you got Brock Purdy and you have, Jared Goff and all these guys. They don't mind winning in the playoffs. They're fine. They're good. They're great. But for Dak, no, it's fine. Let's keep on losing.
I mean, here's the reason. They don't play for the Dallas Cowboys.
We're going to be a bunch of losers. That's fine. Let's just accept the status quo.
You said something very interesting early on. You said that we can get a quarterback that can lead us somewhere. Where are they leading us? With the ownership that we have, with the head coach that they're probably going to have, what quarterback do you foresee coming into the system and leading us anywhere?
That's the question.
Draft. There's not a quarterback in free agency. There's not a quarterback that's going to come available that's going to be able to overcome anything.
And that's the question. Daniel, that's the question right there. It's where can they lead us? And the answer to that is
nowhere.
We don't know.
The same as Dak Prescott. No, I know. I know
where there's any quarterback since 1996.
Nowhere.
No.
Any quarterback since 1996.
No, No.
It's proven fact. It is proven fact that no quarterback without a quality head coach wins a Super Bowl. That's factual. That's not emotion. That is fact.
Hold on. If y'all are so out on Mike McCarthy, then how did Aaron Rodgers win a Super Bowl with him if he's not a quality head coach?
Because he's one of the greatest of all time, and he only did it once.
You said no quarterback
time that Aaron Rodgers has ever been there, he's done it one time.
So Bruce Arians is a great head coach?
All-time talent.
We're talking about
all-time talent. Because you even said who's pulling the Cowboys out of this kind of hole that was dug in also by Mike McCarthy. The only quarterbacks who can do it have been Patrick Mahomes, has been Aaron Rodgers, has been Tom Brady, those kinds of quarterbacks. What quarterback are you getting that's going to be able to do that in Dallas anytime soon? You can't.
And I'm not saying it's going to be soon. I'm just saying I'm tired of paying Dak all this money and us losing in the first round.
And if that's the case, that's why I said let him go. But what you're going to find out is that if Dak gets with Bill Belichick or with a quality head coach, he is going to get to a championship game or a Super Bowl before Dallas does, because Dallas can't get a quality head coach as long as Jerry Jones is the owner. That's it.
Right. And I'm not saying that's not an issue. I'm just saying that's not the only issue.
That's the issue.
And what makes me
the problem.
What makes me frustrated is Cowboy fans like you, David, who never put blame on Dak. You said that if Dak plays bad, you'd get off of him.
I said if he's the reason why we lose. If he's the reason why we lose.
We even put caveats on it. If the defense plays well and Dak just goes out there and lay an egg, we can pull the tape. David said if the defense plays well and Dak stinks, it's going to be all on Dak. But that's not what happened in the game. What happened in the game was no matter if Dak played a perfect game, they weren't going to win that football game. Point clear.
Because here's what actually happened in the football game. It's 27-7. Dak goes down the field and he scores. It's 27-10 at that point in the game.
And you're still out of it. It's still over. It's still over.
But no, because we're giving them a chance, because if the defense makes a stop and Dak scores again, it's 27-17. Because even in 2016, as a rookie, down 21-3, Dak brings the team all the way back with over 300 yards passing and 3 touchdowns and ties the football game. So no, don't give me that, because the defense stepped up and did their job. So then when you go to this season in 2024, you go and it's 27-10. What happens in 5 plays? The Packers score in 5 plays.
Yeah,
At that
defense played
point, the
terrible.
game is over. At that point, the game is over because you know it doesn't matter what Dak does. It doesn't matter that he balled out in the second half.
No, it
That
doesn't.
defense was not going to let anybody come back in that game. And to
I'm
me,
saying
that is the reason, the biggest reason why we lost. Not that Dak played, and I'll change it. You're right. Dak didn't play well. He didn't play good.
He
was
played
awful
bad
in the
he
first
played
half.
bad.
He played awful in the first half, and he played great in the second half, but the second half doesn't count because of that defense. The defense played terrible from start to finish. Coaching was terrible from start to finish.
And
So you're asking me to come off of Dak Prescott, who,
Yep.
yes, did not play well, but he was the only one in the second half, or he was the only one in the and of the defense of anybody of the defense and of him. He's the only one who actually played better than what they were playing.
This defense gave up at halftime. The defense gave up.
I would
done.
too. I'm like, man, this is what our quarterback.
They gave up. They gave up in the first half. They gave up on the first drive. What are we talking about? They didn't show up to play
But
at
neither
all.
did Dak. Neither
Period.
did Dak.
He did. He did play. He at least did something.
Not when it mattered.
The defense didn't show up at all. How is it the majority of Dak Prescott, when he actually at least played well, when the defense didn't play well at all?
I'm just tired of seeing Dak getting schooled by lesser quarterbacks in playoff games.
I didn't know Jordan Love played safety.
Whatever, man. We just see it differently. We just see it differently.
Hey,
I guess.
Jordan Love played against a
Love-
practice squad. Jordan Love played against a practice squad.
We just see
He
it differently.
underthrew.
Your mic got unconnected again.
Well, I think what David's saying is that Jordan Love, as great as the stats looked, he underthrew several wide receivers. And the reason why they made those receptions was because there was no one within 10 to 20 yards. For him, he was playing against ghosts. He was playing against ghosts. There was no pass rush whatsoever. And if there was, he would throw it off his back foot. And he was like, I don't care. It doesn't matter if I underthrow it because there's no one going to be there. He played against a practice squad. Like after the Bills game, I said, the defense is the reason why we will not go anywhere. And I was proven right. I love being right. I love being right about a defense. I love being right about a defensive player who was touted to be the next Lawrence Taylor. And then I found out that he is no better. He's not even DeMarcus Ware. That is the main reason why we lost the game. But I agree. If he's wanting to command $55 to $60 million a year, it's better to let him walk. It is. It's just better to let him walk. But I'm telling you that.
Well, do you think he's not going to command that?
I think somewhere else he might. If we let him go in free agency, I think there's a franchise that's willing to give him $55, $60 million a year because they're going to look at, man, he has Jerry Jones as his owner. You're talking about the most undisciplined team in the NFL. There's going to be people who, there's people who've rationalized way stupider decisions for less. And so for me, I think they'll be like, well, we're a disciplined team. We run our organization the right way. I think he can thrive in our system. And then ultimately, he's going to put butts in the seats. He's going to give people to come to your games. And despite his coaching, he does have one of the best winning percentages of most of the quarterbacks in the league. So yeah, I think he will command $55-60 million elsewhere. Not here though.
He's going to demand it here. And what we're going to do is we're going to pay him.
If you're saying he's going to ask for that, yes, I think he will.
Right. And we're going to pay him that. And
I wouldn't either.
The best thing for this show to settle this argument is Dak goes somewhere else and we'll see what he does somewhere else. Because my money is that Dak is never going to win a Super Bowl with any team under any system. Because when big games come, he gets scared. He's scared of the bright lights. He always has these awful playoff blowouts where, like I'm telling you guys, Dak, and y'all watch the game. He should have had 4 interceptions that game. You talk about how great he was in the second half. That first touchdown pass, really, he should have 3 first-half interceptions because on that drive that he scored with Ferguson, it hit the linebacker right in the hands. He just dropped it. So he shouldn't have scored on that one. And then in the second half, I think it was the first drive of the second half, he should have got picked off. He did not play. I mean, it was just, and I am tired of getting excited about Cowboys football, showing up to the playoffs, and then watching my quarterback not show up.
Well, and here's what I would say to Cowboy fans like you. It's your fault. It's your fault. That's your fault for having expectations for this team. For me, the reason why I'm not disappointed, why I'm not really getting emotional, why I'm not really outraged, is because I expected this to happen. You don't expect anything and you won't get disappointed. That is how this works. When you become a Cowboys fan, what you're going to realize is that you're going to put together great seasons. But then guess what? Because of who your owner is, you will never win anything. You accept that simple fact. You accept it, and you will never get disappointed. And you're actually, and for me, I consider myself the most objective Cowboy fan. And I'm able to see things clearly because I'm not shrouded by my Cowboy fandom and by my expectations. I'm able to view things how they are. So that's what you got to learn, Savage. You got to join the club, brother. You got to join the club of do not expect anything from your Dallas Cowboys, and you will not be disappointed.
All right, I will join the club of level-headed Cowboy fans, and we have a marginal.
Got it. You'll be so much happier.
We have a marginal quarterback. We have marginal coaching. We have a marginal defense. And the fact that we've won 12 games the last 3 years is crazy. I don't know how we did it with that quarterback. I don't know how. I don't know how we did it with Dak. But somehow we were able to.
You know,
somehow we were able to win with Dak.
I mean, you were. Maybe
right?
you look at what happened whenever he missed that year. Dude, we went 6-10. That's what it's going to be like again. That's what it's going to be.
Maybe
6-10 for another year.
I saw Cooper Rush go 5-1. I don't know.
Yeah, but then he got exposed at Philly, and then I had a feeling that had he continued to play that year, they're just going to look at that Philly tape and be like, this is how we beat him. It's easy to come in when no one knows anything about you. It's easy. We've seen that for many quarterbacks.
Right. David, I think your mic is unplugged still.
I think you need another cord, buddy.
Probably. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you guys can be on that island. I'm not there yet. I'm not going to verbally get excited, but I'm still going to support. I'm going to support this team and believe that maybe.
Well, I'll support. I'm not going to believe.
Yeah. Well, we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to our talk of the NFL this week. First is the Philadelphia Eagles lost their 6th game of their last 7 that they've played against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 32-9. Savage, my question to you, was this good Tampa or just bad Philadelphia?
I'm not so sure if there's such of a thing as good Tampa. I don't know if they are a good team. I think they won a bad NFC South, and then they beat a bad Philly team. But I'm not even going to use this as a chance to gloat over Philly. I really thought watching them lose was going to make me feel better. It didn't. I still feel empty. But yeah, I think Philly was who we all thought they were. I will say the only thing that was good about watching Philly lose, and Steven, I hope you're watching this, was you posted so many Cowboys memes. So many Cowboys lost in the playoff memes. And then my favorite part of the game wasn't even in the game. It was seeing Jason Kelce retire. And I know all of Philadelphia is gutted right now. And that made me feel better. Seeing the tush push is basically done. They are no longer going to be able to run that play. And it made me fun. It made me happier seeing Eagle fans sad, but it didn't make me feel better about the Cowboys game. So I don't know if there's such thing as a good Tampa. I think it was just bad Eagles.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you. As much as I want to, because what I don't want to do is I don't want to rain on the parade or the job that Baker Mayfield has done for this team.
Yeah,
I don't want to discredit that in any way. But the Eagles were done. They were done. They were like 1-2-3 Cancun, and I talked to Steven about it because I watched the game with him. At no point in that game did he believe that they were going to win that game. At no point did he believe that for a second. I mean, he even came on our show and said, "Hey, we're going to lose in the playoffs round 1." He said that. So Philly fans knew what was going to happen. And so for me, it is like terrible Eagles. The defense looked like they just didn't want to show up all game. We talk about a Cowboys team who didn't show up all game. Philly's defense didn't show up all game. They made a couple stops, but the reason why sometimes they made a couple of those stops was because of drop passes by Baker Mayfield's teammates. And also, really, they got home on a couple of plays, and they got sacks on third down. But the way they were tackling, if Baker Mayfield could get the ball out and into a receiver's hands in open space, they were done. It was done. That secondary was awful, just so awful. And that's the reason why they were losing that game. Just no effort on the defense. It looked like they quit on Nick Sirianni. And so, again, not to discredit anything that Tampa did, because Tampa, if they wanted, they could have scored 50.
Mm-hmm.
They could have scored 50. And I think that's probably a little bit on, Tampa not being so much better than the Eagles. But terrible, terrible Eagles for sure. I don't know how anyone can say any different.
Yeah, I mean, when you have 10 missed tackles and 2 of the touchdowns that you score come off of those missed tackles, like, it's hard to say that it was good Tampa and not just bad Eagles. But what do you guys think is going to happen for the Eagles, Daniel?
Knowing Philly like I do, they're going to clean house. They will clean house. You talk about Chip Kelly, a guy who had one successful season. The next year, they failed. They fired him. And it's been evident that Nick Sirianni was a byproduct of Gannon and Steichen. That much is clear. You talk about an offense that just went downhill as soon as Steichen went to Indianapolis. And you talk about a defense who David already hinted that they were mediocre at best. They were overrated. Were even worse than that this year. And then you talk about a coach who all he's really good at is talking trash to the media and to other sidelines. But then, and Savage, I think Savage, you pointed this out, in his opening press conference, I finally watched it ever as the Eagles head coach. That was the most cringiest interview I've ever seen. Ever. And you're telling me that guy is a head coach in the National Football League? And then you're also talking about the most passionate fans in the NFL who they have more say in what goes on in their football team than any other team in the NFL. The Philadelphia Eagles, they listen to their fans. And those fans are saying, get rid of everyone. So that's what's going to happen in Philly. I have no doubt about it. They're not going to keep Nick Sirianni. They're not going to keep anyone. If they do, I will be surprised, and Philly fans will be upset, and they may not come to games next year if that's the case.
Yeah, man, I feel like for Philly, they're very much like the Cowboys, except it's a more dramatic arc because they went to the Super Bowl last year, and now they lost in the first round.
Their collapse was way bigger. Yeah.
To where Dallas, like, they won in the first round last year and they lost in the first round this year. Really, it's basically the same outcome. You only get to one playoff game where you win last year, you lose, you play terrible this year. But I think with Philly, I don't think that Nick Sirianni is a good coach. If he's on the job market, if he gets fired by Philly and the Cowboys fire Mike McCarthy, how far down the list is Sirianni for you? I mean, McCarthy would be on my list higher than Sirianni would be.
Yep.
Just because what does Sirianni do? I mean, there's really no value that he brings to the table. So I think that he goes. I think Baker, I'll say this really quick about Baker. I do think that you should extend him.
Yeah.
Maybe like a 2-3 year deal.
2 to 3 years, yes.
Making $30 million a year, something like that. 3 for 90, somewhere in that range. I think he's earned that.
Yeah, he has.
I wouldn't say give him 4 years for $40 million a year, because that would be just a crazy deal to give someone like Baker Mayfield. 4 years, $40 million. That's a big boy contract that you need to live up to. And so I don't know if he'd be able to do that. But, I think both teams are – it's funny. It's how it's like they're both at the same level, but the two fan bases feel so differently about their teams with Philly and Tampa. So as a Cowboys fan, I'm happy-ish.
Yeah. Yeah. So next, the Houston Texans beat down the Cleveland Browns 45-14. CJ Stroud and the offense absolutely relentless throughout the entire game, while Cleveland's defense that was ranked number 1 completely disappeared. But Savage, how far do you think Stroud and the Texans can go in the postseason?
I guess we'll see come pick 'em. I guess we will see come pick 'em.
So he thinks they're going to win, is what he's saying.
Yeah.
No, I did not say that. I said, I guess we'll see come pick 'em.
Which means that he's going to pick them.
Yeah.
I mean, they looked really good. And honestly, I was talking about this in the group chat, and y'all both, acted like I was way off base for saying this. But Houston absolutely dismantling Cleveland is a win for me for this show, because there was a lot of talk about how good the Browns were and sneaky playoff team and this, that, and the third. Oh, Cleveland. Oh, the number 4 team in the NFL. No, because at the end of the day, the quarterback position in the playoffs means too much. And there's no way Joe Flacco, come the playoffs, wasn't going to get cooked. He got cooked. I talk about how bad Dak played. At least Dak had one interception that wasn't a pick six. Flacco threw 2 straight pick sixes. Oh, my goodness. If I was a Cleveland fan, I might just not watch football ever again after that performance. But me being a Dallas fan, I'm really upset that Houston has a better quarterback than we do right now, and they're paying him nothing. And so it makes me sick that the fan base of Houston gets to celebrate and the fan base of Dallas doesn't. At the end of the day, though, Houston, please remember that the Rangers owned the Astros in the playoffs. But, I think the Texans can be – I'll go ahead and say I think they're going to beat Baltimore straight up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, for me, first I'll do the Cleveland thing. So our student pastor is a Cleveland Browns fan. He's from Ohio. And so for him, they were just happy they were in the playoffs. I mean, you talk about a team who lost their starting quarterback, who lost their running back, and lost their left tackle. And the fact that they were able to get into the postseason, they were just happy to be there. And honestly, the Cleveland Browns, they pulled the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, if you think about it, a team that was considered to be a top 4, their defense did not show up all game. They just pulled the Cowboys, and it's as simple as that. And then CJ Stroud, man, what a way to begin your young career with a rookie head coach, with young weapons, with a defense that is just on fire and just not afraid of anything or anyone. That is a dangerous team. They're almost as dangerous as the Buffalo Bills, but we'll talk about them in a little bit. I don't know if I'm with you on if they beat Baltimore, but I give them a good shot to beat Baltimore. I think CJ Stroud's just playing at a level that he's not afraid of any big moment, and he'll show up. And we saw what happened the last time Baltimore had a number 1 seed, and they took a week off to rest. Look what happened. So you have some history on your side there. But for me, Houston is the best team in Texas right now. The best football team in Texas, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely agree. CJ Stroud is who I said he was. He was I put him at top 2 quarterbacks mid-season. So I'm glad that I was right about CJ Stroud. He probably should have been the first overall pick, but I'm glad it turned out the way that it did for him, because I don't think he's having this success in Carolina. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And again, it further proves my point of this is what happens when you actually have a great head coach. I'm excited to see what they do against Baltimore. I think that I give them a shot as well. When you have a football team as prepared as Houston is, I mean, they'll run through a brick wall for Ryans. And that's just clearly evident. They're not scared of anybody. It's going to be a heck of a game. And
Dude,
I think
excited dude, we got 2 amazing games on Saturday. I cannot wait.
Yeah. And I think this is not the next game that you're talking about, but we'll make it the next game you're talking about. Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen in Buffalo. Patrick Mahomes in freezing temperatures plays a fantastic game, albeit against the Miami Dolphins, but Rashid Rice stepped up and showed that he could make a play or two. Josh Allen did his thing against a TJ Watt-less Pittsburgh Steelers, but he showed up and they played a great game. This is the first game that Patrick Mahomes is playing on the road in the postseason. Savage, we'll go Daniel and then we'll go Savage. Daniel, who has the advantage in this game, and what could another AFC Championship appearance mean for Josh Allen?
Well, I think this one's going to be tough for Patrick Mahomes to overcome. This is one I don't even say he needs to figure it out, because I don't know how you can. They know that Rice is going to be your only option other than Kelsey on the other side. You don't think they're going to try to scheme and take those guys? That Buffalo defense is playing as well as any defense is in the NFL right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're hard hitting. They're rarely out of position, and so it's gonna be tough for Patrick Mahomes to do it, especially with the way Josh Allen and that offense is rolling right now. You talk about a team that we said at the beginning of the year was struggling to run the football to help out Josh Allen in any way, and Josh Allen's going to turn the ball over. Well, now, since they got rid of Ken Dorsey and Joe Brady has now been calling the offense, that offense has changed dramatically. They run the football really, really well. They scheme to their tight ends for the most part, and then they have Stephon Diggs over the top with Gabe Davis also there. And then Shakur, I think that's how you say his name, he's also a really great slot guy that if you can find space, he can hurt you. So for me, I believe a whole lot in this offense now that takes some of the pressure off of Josh Allen to force things. I mean, you look at last week, he turned the ball over 0 times. I'll take that. I will take that. I'll take a 200-yard game, 50 on the ground, 4 total touchdowns. I'll take it. So for me, I think that is going to be tough for Patrick Mahomes to overcome that offense. Now, if it's going to be close in the end, then I will probably give more of a leeway to Patrick Mahomes because he's just clutch. That's who he is. And what an AFC Championship appearance would do for Josh Allen, it would change the narrative that a lot of people would have about him, including myself. I would have to put him in the top 10 if he would get to an AFC championship game in the middle of a coaching change at the middle of the year. So kudos to him.
Yeah, an AFC Championship appearance for Josh Allen. It would honestly make all of the hype that he's received valid, because I don't believe it's currently valid. But if he were to make an AFC Championship game, it would make it understandable. If he were to win the AFC and go to the Super Bowl, it would make it valid. That's what I'll say. I don't think beating this Kansas City team will make all of the hype to where it's like they're the Super Bowl favorite every year, and he's the Madden cover, and he, I still think it's a little overstated, but I can see why they would say that. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen. Unfortunately, Kansas City's going to go over in there and win. You want to talk about a team that's built for the playoffs. That defense, like you said, like the Buffalo defense has been playing good. I think the Kansas City has currently the best defense.
Look what they did, Tyreek.
They looked fantastic. I think I'm taking Isaiah Pacheco over Cook. Pacheco runs like he hates grass. And he is absolutely fantastic.
Playmaker.
At the end of the day, does Mahomes' weapons leave him somewhat limited? Sure, but the way they play, you only need Mahomes to do something crazy 3 to 4 times a game. If he can if he can give you a few big time plays with the way they play football, I think they're going to be fine. So I absolutely trust Mahomes more than I trust Josh Allen. Josh Allen has been playing fantastic the last 8 weeks. Kind of. I mean, some of those games they're winning despite Josh Allen.
Yeah.
But when I'm saying fantastic, I mean fantastic for Josh Allen in the sense of he's not losing you games.
Yeah.
You know, but as soon as you start to believe in Josh Allen, this is when he lays the egg. So how Josh Allen-y would it be to lose to Mahomes in your home whenever everyone's expecting you to win? And then how Mahomesian would it be for him in a year that everybody says he doesn't have no weapons, he doesn't have this, he doesn't have that, they have a terrible offense.
Which would still be true. Which would still be true.
Right. But guess what he would have done?
Overcome it.
Which is another way of saying he figured it out. So I'm going with the Chiefs. And, yeah, that's my pick on this one. But if the Bills do win, it'd be great for Allen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for exactly the reasons that you guys stated, if Josh Allen was to get to an AFC championship game, all the things that we say about Josh Allen, not that they weren't true, but he flipped the switch. At least for one season, he flipped the switch. And because Savage is right, this is the time. Josh Allen has always been a quarterback who has had these kinds of performances in big games, but when the next big game comes, it's not consistent. I think you can look at that. I guess it was 2019 when he made it to the divisional round, or he had a great wild card game, had a fantastic divisional round game against Mahomes in that shootout, and it was fantastic. Or no. That 2019 was the year they made it to the AFC Championship game against Kansas City. They lost because their defense really wasn't that good.
Yeah, it was that was the 13-second game, right?
The 13-second game was in 2020 and the divisional round, where Josh Allen put on a show once again. The defense lets them down, or Mahomes did Mahomesian things and just played well. But since then, Josh hasn't consistently performed to the level that we've expected him to coming off of those 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. And even like Savage said, the last 8 weeks of the season, or when they went on that 6-game winning streak, he wasn't necessarily playing well. And in some games won kept it close in spite of Josh Allen. And then Josh Allen would make an incredible play to put the team over the top. But if he can do it against Kansas City this weekend and get to an AFC championship game, I think the narrative of Josh Allen does change for him, not just for Daniel, but also for myself as well, because I've been hard on Josh Allen too. But, man, I'm pulling for Mahomes. I really am. The fact that he's gotten the team to this point, even to a divisional game, is incredible. With how bad his receivers are and how inconsistent they tend to be, this is the best defense, though, that he's ever had in Kansas City. And if they can show up and play like they did against Miami, who a lot of people have had trouble putting the bottle on, even though as of late, I think that tape is out on them now. If they can play well and they can force Allen to make a couple of mistakes, I think Mahomes, I think they do take it away. But the last game that we'll talk about, we've already talked about Baker. Now let's talk about Jared Goff in Detroit as they won their first playoff game since 1991 against Matthew Stafford and the Los Angeles Rams, 24-23. Savage, did Dan Campbell prove something to you, or is this more about Jared Goff and that football team?
Yeah, I think Dan Campbell proved something. I mean, I called him a junior high coach, so to me, he proved something. I think he showed that he can have an ability to coach himself to win a big game. Ben Johnson's probably going to get a head coaching job this offseason. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying there's a chance there's some Nick Sirianni brewing in Detroit. I don't know exactly what Dan Campbell does with that team. I know that he's supposed to be a motivator for that team, but he's an offensive coach who has a fantastic offensive coordinator. Sounds like Sirianni. Emotional coach. Sounds like Sirianni. Not exactly the best way to introduce yourself to the team, talking about biting kneecaps, kind of like Sirianni. So there might be a Sirianni factor there. We'll just have to see what he does without Ben Johnson. But for right now, yeah, sure, he looks great. I would much rather be a Detroit fan today than a Dallas fan today. They look like they have a brighter ceiling and a better future than we do. And so, yeah, good on them. They play the Packers, or no, who do they play?
They play Tampa. They play Tampa.
Yeah, they'll beat Tampa.
And they have a home game. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll beat Tampa. So this will be Jared Goff's second NFC Championship game appearance. And so, yeah, good on them. Congratulations. You get to go to the NFC Championship game and lose by 30 to San Francisco. So,
yeah, I mean, for me, Dan Campbell, I don't think he proved anything more to me because I already thought that he was a great motivator. I think that's the type of coach that he is. I think that's the difference between him and Sirianni, in my opinion, is just the fact that I don't know if Nick Sirianni can even motivate, because if he could, his players wouldn't have given up on him. The thing about Dan Campbell is I don't think his team will ever give up on him. That's the type of coach that he is. People will run through a brick wall with him. You saw it came out like what he said to them at the beginning of the season, or I don't know if it was the beginning of the season, but they showed him coaching and during practice, and you can tell that his players were buying into him when he was saying. So for me, I don't think he proved anything to me. I do believe that it is amazing for Detroit what they are able to do, especially since it's a former player who was part of that 0-16 team, and then be able to win your first playoff game since 1991 against the Dallas Cowboys. I think that's an amazing thing. I do agree. I think they're going to beat Tampa Bay. And yeah, they'll probably get smoked by the 49ers, but it's a promising start for a really great future for Detroit.
Yeah, absolutely. But finally, the last question that we have: Washington, Atlanta, Tennessee, Las Vegas, Carolina, Dallas possibly, and the Los Angeles Chargers all have head coaching vacancies. If you guys were the head coach looking for a job, where would you go? Daniel, we'll start with you.
I think for me, it's simple. It's the Chargers. I think with any team, what you're looking for is a team that has a quarterback, that has I wouldn't say proven quarterback, but a talented quarterback. And for me, I think that's what Justin Herbert is. He's a talented quarterback. And having Brandon Staley as your coach, probably not the best way to start your career. And so I do think that job will be filled. I think Jim Harbaugh is going to be that coach. And man, what a coach he would be for Justin Herbert. And Harbaugh has been proven in the NFL. You look at a guy who took Alex Smith and in mid-season changed to Colin Kaepernick and had a magic carpet ride run to the Super Bowl and was a call away from being Super Bowl champions. So for me, I think Chargers are the most desirable destination. I think probably the worst destination that you can go to is the Dallas Cowboys, depending on what you want to do as a head coach. If you want to be a guy that makes the decisions and wants to have say over your personnel that you have over your team, Dallas is not the destination for you. I think Washington is a little interesting because you have weapons there, but you don't have a quarterback. You look at Atlanta, you have weapons, you don't have a quarterback. Tennessee is pretty much barren. Like they pretty much have nothing going on for them. And then Vegas, obviously, if they don't hire Antonio Pierce, I don't know what they're doing. That means you don't want to win. You don't want a team that's bought into you. I have a feeling if they don't sign Antonio Pierce as their head coach, there's going to be a lot of players that want out. It's that simple. And then obviously Carolina, I think if we're talking realistically, what's the worst situation? It's got to be Carolina. You have an owner who seemingly knows nothing about the game, knows nothing about hiring a GM or a coach at all. I feel bad for Bryce Young. I think that's a dumpster fire organization that I don't think will recover as long as they have Temper as their owner. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I'm going to be very original and also go with the Chargers just because I think they have the best quarterback, weapons, and defense combo of any of the open teams.
Yeah.
I don't know how Staley lasted so long there. I would be shocked if Harbaugh ends up with the Chargers. I think that's actually where Belichick is going to land.
You think so?
Just because you already have an established quarterback, so you don't have to worry about Belichick trying to develop your quarterback, and
True.
all of the defensive pieces that are at hand with the Chargers. You have a Khalil Mack, you have a Bosa, you just have a lot of players there that I think Bill would be able to work with. I think Harbaugh, I was hearing this circulate around some of those nationally syndicated shows, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if Harbaugh lands in Washington, just because the Harbaugh family is also close to one another. And, you have the other Harbaugh brother, he's in Baltimore, and then you're in Washington, D.C. So you're both in the DMV area, but they don't have to play against each other that much because they're in different conferences. And so I think that's where Harbaugh will land, is Washington. But, yeah, I think the Cowboys' job is a good job. You have a good quarterback, somewhere between the 8th to the 12th best quarterback in the league. You have good weapons. You have a lot of talent. You just don't have a leader. And so I just think that if you can bring in someone with a lot of leadership, I don't even think Vrabel would do that bad with us, to be honest. But yeah, right now Dallas doesn't have a coaching vacancy though, and I don't think they will. So I don't think anything's going to change there. But I like the Chargers as the best spot.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and let's end this show with Pick'em. We have 4 divisional round playoff games. Last week, both Daniel and Savage went 4-2, and I went 3-3. Let's start with the first game. Kansas City going to Buffalo. Who do you got?
Well, for me, I think I'm gonna go Buffalo. I'm gonna go Buffalo in this game. I think it's a different year. I think it's gonna be tough for Patrick Mahomes to overcome. But crazier things can happen. So either way, I'll be happy with it. But I'm gonna take Buffalo.
Give me the Chiefs.
Yeah, also give me Kansas City. I need to see Josh Allen do it before I can believe it and to trust it. If he does, I'm already so behind and pick him. It doesn't matter anyway. I'd rather be proven wrong. So I'm going Kansas City. Next game, Savage said it himself. Houston versus Baltimore. I'm gonna go with Baltimore. I think Lamar Jackson. I think he's ready for the script to be changed, and so I'm gonna go with Baltimore.
I will also go with Baltimore. I'll go with Baltimore this week. Again, I'm hoping that history changes itself and this doesn't. Because at this point, if they lose this game, I don't know. We'll talk about it if they lose, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going Houston. I like what I'm seeing from them. Lamar, off of a bunch of rest, has proven to be a difficult situation walking into. And guys, I know that Houston team has a lot of what you would classify as rookies, but those guys aren't rookies anymore. And
These are proven guys at this point.
I wouldn't say that Love is a rookie anymore. Well, first off, he wasn't because this is his second year anyways. But even as play experience, he's not a rookie. So there's something different about Stroud, y'all. I think he wins this game, and then all of a sudden there's going to be talks about, is he in the top 5 quarterbacks in this league? We've been talking about that, but I'm saying that will become the discussion.
Yeah, for sure.
So I got Houston.
Yeah, if Stroud can do this, I think he is a top 5 quarterback for sure.
I mean, you're talking about a defense that's rolling in Baltimore. So if he beats Baltimore's defense, man,
honestly, if he beats Baltimore and he balls out and he's a stud, he's a top 3 quarterback. Or at least the argument can be had because
you're talking about beating the best defense in Cleveland one week and then potentially the second or third best defense next.
Yeah,
that's got to be top 3.
Then why are y'all picking Baltimore?
Because they have the second and third best defense.
Sounds like
And
they don't
because
want
they put
They're
and
better
because they
coached,
put the
too.
foots in the 49ers. So we should be picking Baltimore. Baltimore has a resume as well. And it's and I'm not saying, I guess I don't know, I can't speak for Daniel, but at least for myself, I'm not expecting Baltimore to like destroy Houston.
Me either.
I think it'll be a
Me either.
game, but I think
it'll be close.
at some point Baltimore is going to pull away or get a close one. That's what I think, because Houston is the hottest team right now in the playoffs. They have to be. Next game is Tampa versus Detroit.
Detroit.
Yeah, Detroit.
Yeah, I'm going Detroit too. Then the last game of the week is Green Bay versus San Francisco.
I'm going to take the 49ers. I really hope it's a great game for Jordan Love, though. I really do hope that he can make it close. But it is San Francisco. We'll see what happens.
So the team that's given the Cowboys so much trouble in the playoffs outside of the San Francisco 49ers is the Green Bay Packers. The team that's given the San Francisco 49ers all their trouble in the playoffs has been the Green Bay Packers.
No. You talk about when Aaron Rodgers collapsed 2 years in a row against the 49ers?
Oh,
The
wait, never
49ers
mind.
have owned the Green Bay Packers.
I think I might have had that switched up in my head. I just remember there's been like some crazy matchups between those two teams.
I think in the 90s it was that way.
Yeah, Green Bay versus San Francisco in the 90s. Like the
That was
Packers,
Green Bay. That was all Green Bay.
the Packers just 94, 95, 96, and I think even 97. All of those years ended with the Packers knocking out San Francisco.
So there's a lot of history there.
Yeah, that's a rivalry.
And I actually do think that Jordan Love might be better than Brock Purdy. But I'm still going to go with the Niners.
No, you certainly can make that case. I mean, you look at what Jordan Love has in comparison to, not to say that, Jordan Love doesn't have anything, because those young guys can play. They really can.
That's the scary part about Green Bay, is that all these guys are in their first or second year.
Yeah.
And they're playing like this. Man,
They're being underestimated, and they're making people pay for it.
Green Bay can be, like, arguably in a couple of years the number 1, number 2 team.
Yeah, it's just to me like their defense. Can their defense do it for another week? Like, they're one of the worst run defenses in the league, and they're about to play Trent Williams and Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah,
that's gonna be difficult for them to stop.
Yeah,
Cowboys deep. They always do.
So, yeah. But that is going to do it for us here on Double Take, an NFL podcast. Thank you so much for listening and joining us as we talk Cowboys, as we talk playoffs, as we talk head coaches. Join us next week as we cover these divisional games and look forward to the NFC and AFC championship game. Enjoy a great weekend of watching football. Until next time, God bless.